You may already know this, but you are not like the others. And no, I don't mean better. I don't mean more gifted. I mean that some people move through life with the feeling that they are supposed to be doing something, but they can never fully explain what. They achieve things and still feel like they're standing slightly to the side of their own life. If that feeling has followed you for years, I want you to consider something. What if that feeling isn't confusion? Because I believe there are souls that arrive with a certain kind of work attached to them. And the strange thing is, the people assigned to this work usually spend the longest trying to ignore it because it rarely looks the way they expected. Recognizing your work changes everything. Here is something people almost never consider. Your deepest wound and your life's work might be the same thing wearing different clothes. Not because suffering is good, and not because pain is required, but because sometimes the place that hurt you the most becomes the exact place where you learn how to help others. The person who was misunderstood becomes the one who finally gives language to things others never knew how to explain. And we usually call that coincidence, but what if it isn't? What if your assignment and your wound were packaged together not as punishment, but as preparation? Because how do you guide people through territory you have never walked? How do you recognize a locked door if you have never stood outside one? Maybe this is why certain struggles followed you so closely, not because life selected you for suffering, but because your work required intimacy with places other people only understand from a distance. Because maybe the thing that almost broke you was quietly introducing you to your assignment all along. Some of the highest work on earth does not look spiritual at all. It looks like being the one person who stays calm when everyone else is falling apart. It looks like being the person people call when they don't even know what they need. They just know your presence makes things feel less heavy. And that kind of work gets no attention. The ones who hold families together without being thanked. The ones who sit with people in their darkest moments without trying to fix them, correct them, or turn their pain into a lesson. They just stay there, steady, present, unshaken. And sometimes, that is the whole assignment. Some souls do not come here to be loud. They come here to make sure other people do not break. Maybe your work is not to inspire thousands of people. Maybe your work is to be the reason one person still believes love is real. Maybe your work is to love one difficult person without letting their darkness turn you cold. Maybe your work is to be the safe place in a world that keeps making people feel unsafe. That is not small. That is not less spiritual. That might be one of the hardest assignments on earth. The people with the biggest assignment are often the ones delaying it the most. And it's not because they're lazy. It's because deep down, they already know what saying yes will cost them. Because real purpose does not just inspire you. It interrupts your life. It changes what you can tolerate. It changes who you can keep pretending with. It changes the version of you that gets to survive. That's why some people stay stuck for years. They keep saying they're confused, but they're not really confused. They know the thing. They know the gift. They know the work. They know what keeps calling them back every time they try to distract themselves. The scariest part is not that you don't know what your assignment is. The scariest part is that you do. So maybe the reason you keep circling it is because you understand that once you step into it, your old life cannot come with you completely, and that is terrifying, but it is also the sign that this is real. Sometimes your real work does not show up on the clean path. It shows up in the part of your life you thought ruined everything. The recovery, the breakup, the divorce, the career collapse, the years where you felt behind everyone else, the season where nothing made sense and you kept wondering why your life had taken such a strange turn. But what if that was not a delay? What if that was where the assignment started revealing itself? Because the person who survives addiction understands chains in a way a textbook never could. The person who loses everything and rebuilds from zero knows how to speak to someone standing in ashes. The person who goes through a health crisis and comes out with a completely different relationship to their body now carries a kind of wisdom that cannot be faked. The detour is not always where you lost time. Sometimes it is where you earned your authority. And this is why you have to be careful when you call a chapter wasted. Some chapters were not there to punish you. They were there to qualify you. You thought life had pulled you away from your purpose, but maybe it was pulling you into the exact territory you would one day help someone else survive. Know what work is yours, not the pretty answer, the real one. Start with what makes you quietly furious, not petty anger, but the thing in the world you cannot look away from. The injustice, the gap, the pain people keep pretending is normal. Sometimes rage is not there to ruin you. Sometimes rage is a compass. Then look at what you do naturally that other people find rare. Maybe you calm people down. Maybe you explain things in a way that finally makes sense. Maybe you notice what everyone else misses. Your gift usually feels ordinary to you because you have been carrying it your whole life. And then look at what keeps pulling you back even after you swear you are done with it. The subject, the people, the problem, the message. Not because you are obsessed, but because something in you recognizes it. Put those three together, what makes you angry in a clean way, what you do naturally, and what keeps pulling you back. That is where the fingerprint starts to appear. And once you see it, you stop asking, what am I supposed to do with my life? You start realizing your life has been answering you the whole time. Pay attention to what makes you angry, because sometimes your anger knows your assignment before your mind does. Not the small irritation. I'm talking about the thing you cannot laugh off, the thing you cannot unsee, the thing that makes something in you say, no, this is deeply wrong. That kind of anger is not always a problem. Sometimes it is direction. The person who cannot stand watching people be lied to or manipulated may be carrying work around truth. The person who gets furious watching creative people get crushed may be called to protect expression. The person who grieves when beauty is destroyed may be a keeper of something sacred. Your anger is not always there to make you bitter. Sometimes it is there to show you what you were born to defend. People think the spiritual path means becoming so calm that nothing affects you anymore. But what if some things are supposed to affect you? What if your refusal to be numb is part of your work? Because there is a difference between anger that poisons you and anger that points you. One keeps you trapped in reaction. The other shows you the place where your soul refuses to stay silent. And when you learn the difference, anger stops being something you are ashamed of and starts becoming something you can understand. So study where your anger keeps pointing. What do you keep defending in your mind, even when nobody asked you to? What kind of pain makes you feel personally responsible, even if it has nothing to do with your own life? Because that is usually not random. That is usually where your soul recognizes unfinished work. And now, it's time for today's comment of the day. Stop thinking that you're waiting to win. You're already winning. A lot of people think winning only starts once they reach the goal, once everything is figured out, once life finally looks the way they imagined. But this comment points at something different. What if winning already started? What if showing up, growing, trying again, becoming more disciplined, more peaceful, more yourself, counts too? Because sometimes people overlook the fact that they already survived things they once thought would break them, and that deserves recognition. Maybe you're not waiting to win. Maybe you're already in the middle of it. Thank you for sharing this. Some of the most important souls on earth will never be publicly recognized for what they came here to do. And that is hard to accept in a world that keeps teaching people that if something matters, it should be visible, it should grow, it should be praised, it should be measurable, it should have an audience, a platform, a number attached to it. But that is not how all real work moves. Some work is invisible by design. There is someone who moved back to a place everyone else was trying to escape from, not because it was easy, but because something in them knew that leaving was not the whole story. Their work may not look impressive. It may look like being present, being consistent, being the one familiar light in a place that has gotten used to abandonment. There is someone choosing to become a conscious parent in a family line where nobody taught them how. No applause, no spotlight. Just one person deciding that what was passed down does not have to keep passing through. That is not small. That is not ordinary. That is a soul standing in the middle of history and saying, "This ends with me." There is an artist making something that only 12 people may ever truly understand, and the world may call that failure because the world worships scale. But what if those 12 people needed that exact song, that exact page, that exact message, that exact piece of beauty to make it through a year they almost did not survive? The value of your work is not measured by how many people see it. Sometimes it is measured by what would have collapsed if you never did it. Modern culture has made meaningful work look loud. It has made people believe that if their assignment is not public, profitable, or impressive, then it must not count. And quietly, that belief has stolen the dignity from millions of sacred lives. Because the grandmother praying over a family that barely listens still counts. The friend who keeps showing up for someone who has forgotten how to hope still counts. The person who makes one room safer, one child freer, one home softer, one conversation more honest, one forgotten place feel less abandoned. That counts. Do not let a loud world convince you that quiet work is lesser work. The work happening in the dark is often the load-bearing wall. Nobody praises it. Nobody takes pictures of it, but everything rests on it. One of the strangest moments on this path is realizing that not every purpose you committed to was actually yours. A borrowed calling can look beautiful from the outside. It can look disciplined, responsible, even noble. You can be helping people, showing up, doing what everyone told you was meaningful, and still feel this quiet flatness underneath it all. Not failure, not sadness, just the feeling that something in you has not fully arrived. That is why borrowed callings are so hard to spot. Sometimes they come from love, a parent's unlived dream, a family that needed you to be strong, a community that expected you to become the one who fixes everything. And the confusing part is, you may have done real good there. You may have helped people. You may have learned discipline, patience, service, pressure, and strength. So this is not about regretting those years or acting like that version of you was wrong. But eventually, the borrowed purpose starts to feel like a costume. The compliments stop feeding you. The role that once made you feel useful starts making you feel absent from your own life. You can still perform it well, but something in you knows you are performing. A borrowed calling can make you respected, but it will never make you feel fully claimed by your own life. That does not mean those years were wasted. They may have been training. They may have taught you what responsibility feels like, what exhaustion feels like, what false belonging feels like, and the exact shape your soul refuses to become. And that moment when it starts feeling too tight is not always a crisis. Sometimes it is graduation. Sometimes the discomfort does not mean you are ungrateful. It means the real assignment is finally getting loud enough to interrupt the borrowed one. So if something looks right but feels empty, pay attention. If everyone praises the path but your soul feels missing from it, pay attention. You were not built for a normal life, and the sooner you stop apologizing for that, the sooner everything starts making sense. That does not mean your life has to be loud. It does not mean it has to be dramatic every second. It does not mean you are supposed to reject peace, love, stability, or ordinary joy. But there is a difference between a simple life and a life that is too small for your soul. And deep down, you know the difference. You have probably tried to want what everyone else wanted. You have probably tried to be satisfied with the obvious path. You have probably tried to convince yourself that comfort was enough, that fitting in was enough, that being liked was enough, that doing what made sense on paper was enough. But something in you kept refusing to fall asleep. That is not a curse, that is your signal, because some souls do not come here just to get through life. They come here to make contact with something real. They come here to change the emotional temperature of a room. They come here to carry truth into places where people have gotten comfortable pretending. They come here to protect what is fragile, rebuild what was broken, name what was hidden, love what was difficult, and stand where someone else would have walked away. And no, understanding your work will not make everything easy. It may actually make certain things harder, because once you see your assignment clearly, you cannot keep lying to yourself in the same way. You cannot keep calling avoidance peace. You cannot keep calling comfort alignment. You cannot keep calling a half-life wisdom just because it is familiar. But it will make life meaningful in a way comfort never could. Because comfort can keep you safe, but meaning makes you feel alive. A comfortable life asks, how little can I risk? A complete life asks, what was I actually sent here to give? And that is the difference. Some people are chasing a life that never asks anything from them. But you are never going to be satisfied with that. Even when you wanted rest, even when you wanted simplicity, even when you were tired of being the one who feels everything so deeply, some part of you still knew that you were moving towards something more honest. That is why the seasons where you thought you were falling apart may have actually been the seasons where the false parts of your life were being removed, one by one, until only the real thing could speak. You may have looked lost from the outside, but maybe you were being redirected. You may have looked behind, but maybe you were being prepared. You may have looked like you were starting over, but maybe starting over was the first time you stopped trying to continue a life that was never truly yours. And if you are here right now, listening to this, still searching, still wondering why certain words keep reaching you at the exact right time, that is not random. Something in you is already responding. Something in you already knows there is work attached to your life, even if you do not have the full language for it yet. The work is not waiting for some perfect future version of you. It is already moving through the way you notice things, the way you care, the way you get angry at what others ignore, the way you keep returning to the same truth, the way you survive, learn, soften, strengthen, and somehow still want to give something good to this world. And if you're still watching, I genuinely appreciate you, because this kind of message is not for everyone. Some people hear words like assignment, purpose, and calling, and they immediately look for something grand. But if you made it this far, maybe some part of you already understands that your work may not need to be loud to be real. Maybe it is already showing up in the way you care, the way you notice, the way you keep surviving, and still choose not to become cold. Maybe your life has been trying to show you the shape of your assignment for a long time, not through one big sign, but through the same quiet pull that keeps bringing you back to what matters. So do not rush the answer. Let it reveal itself honestly. You are not behind.